Once that was all done, it was then time to put it together, and I was so looking forward to this part. Just putting together the back box in itself was just, I was just so amazed that I'd done this. I really am. Like I said, I'm no carpenter. I don't know how I did it really. Hiya, welcome back to my channel. It's Wendy here from Toonpish Crafts, and I hope you're doing okay. A couple of months ago, a friend of mine, Baz, who has Timber Marshalls on Instagram, and I'll put his link in the description box below, sent me an item that he handmade. He's handmade quite a few of these pieces, and he's made them into lamps and all sorts. So go check out Instagram. His feed is amazing. He's a very talented young man. Anyway, he sent me this piece, and he basically said, I want to see what you can do with it. Well, 2 months later, or 3 even maybe, I come up with something. I decided to go with mirrors, and I thought it would be really cool to use mirrored tiles on this piece. Now, I did have a few issues. I'm not very good with mathematical equations, so I couldn't do an endless mirror because you would have needed to tilt the mirrors in certain directions. But anyway, I've made this piece. I hope you enjoy watching it. It was fun to make. Thanks, Baz, for the challenge. Anyway, let's have a look. So this is the piece that I was sent by Baz. It's handcrafted. Now all those little angles have got to be really difficult to do. It's perfect though. I mean, that must have taken quite a while just to make that. It's all sanded beautifully and everything. I don't want to let Baz down, but at the time I had no clue what I was going to make with it. So my first step was to take it to the garage and to spray it black. So now that I've got it sprayed completely black, I found some mirrored tiles. Now I got these from Temu, I think. They are sticky back plastic mirrored tiles, and you can cut them. They're very, very thin. And I thought they would be cool to put them in each of these little sections. They're sticky back plastic, so they should sit fine. I've cut them in 1 centimetre strips, and I figured if every piece or every side of this has a mirror, it's going to look absolutely amazing. So once I've taken off the sticky back plastic, it's then just popping them into the sections. As all the sections are the same size, once I'd cut one bit the right size, then I could cut loads of the same size for the different sections. So there was about 5 different sizes I had to cut, but this stuff is really easy to cut. I won't put you through the whole lot though. So that particular size fit quite a lot of the angles. You can just about see what I'm showing you, where the mirrors are. And these pieces are the next size. They are for a longer piece, 1 centimetre wide. They're all 1 centimetre wide, which is very handy. It was a little difficult sometimes getting them to fit, so I came up with a cotton bud and I rubbed it along the edge with a cotton bud to try and get it to stick. These are another size of pieces, again 1 centimetre, and that's a lot smaller. So I figured each piece would fit on the edge of the triangle and the light would reflect on each angle. Now that's the way I was thinking. This is one of the mirror tiles that I was telling you about. I'm trying to show you here how I cut the mirrored tiles. I use a sharp blade and a cutting board, but I am right-handed, and because of that I'm struggling to cut with my left hand. But I wanted to show you how I did it, and I'm using the old camera arm, so it's at a funny angle. But I have got a new one now, so it's all good. But the thing is with these tiles is they're so thin they can be cut with scissors. Once I've got it to 1 centimetre, that's when I offer it up to the piece that I'm using and cut it a little bit longer, and then just trim it up until I have the right length. Once I was happy with the size, I could then cut all the pieces to the same size. It makes it a lot quicker. Pretty straightforward really. It's then a matter of sticking them on. So in total I cut 74 pieces of mirrored tile for this. All 1 centimetre, as I've said several times, and completely stuck them, and hopefully with not too many gaps either. I really like how it's coming along, got to be honest. I love the way it reflects the light. So the following day I had a bit of a disaster. As I said, the tiles weren't sticking very well. I didn't want to glue every bit onto the wooden frame. I did not want to go down that route. So what I thought I'd do was to use some UV resin. So I'm going to use some Let's Resin UV resin. I find this really easy and quick to use, to be honest. Don't forget I have a discount code for Let's Resin, which will be in the description box below and also on the screen. And I'm using the little studio lamp that I tried out recently. And all I thought I'd do was put a little blob of UV resin in the corners, making sure that obviously they're stuck down first as much as I could. Well, that's what I was thinking. Now there is a lot of corners on this piece, but it's got to be quicker than using glue to glue every mirrored piece. All 74 pieces. It's got to be quicker, right? Well, maybe not quicker, but definitely less messy. Well, the blob seemed to work out quite well. You can see I'm showing you here, if I can get it in focus, that little blob. It looks a little unsightly, but it worked. Now I've just got to go around and do the rest. Now I want to put resin in this piece, so I need a backing. So I used my xTool M1 and I cut a piece of basswood exactly the same size as the original piece. And I'm going to cover it with a mirrored tile. I do wish these were a little stickier, I've got to admit, but it has its bonuses not being so sticky. It's easier to get out bubbles if you have bits of grit or dust in there. It's easier to unstick and restick being so weak sticky, if you see what I mean. It did actually cover really nicely, and as it's mirrored, you don't want any ripples or bubbles in there at all. So I was happy with that. And then I put it on a cutting board and I cut round the outside edge with a sharp blade. Again, you can do that with scissors. It doesn't need a sharp blade. But if you do it with a sharp blade, it only takes a couple of slices and you can get it right up to the edge of the piece you've got it stuck to. Once that was all done, I took off the protective cover off the front of the mirror and I tried it out for size. Should have done that really to start with. I think I must have done at some point. Now I'm going to use these magic mirror mirrors. These were gifted to me by a friend. I think they come from AliExpress, but I'm not 100% sure. They're holographic images and they're all fanciful and mystical images. And I thought these would be really nice to go underneath or between the 2 pieces. So I decided to mess around and see if I could have a few of these images underneath the original piece, between that and the mirror. This is getting really complicated to explain, but I just thought they would go really well. They're like holographic colours, and although I struggled to get them where I wanted them to be and fit, I thought they would go really well because I wanted to add something. But these are not stickers, so they're going to be held down with resin. Now my idea was that these 2 pieces, the mirrored piece on the back and the front, needed to be attached. So I was going to resin them together. So I'm going to use some Let's Resin resin. Again, there's a discount code on the screen. It's also in the description box below. I'm going to pour resin over the base part. I have covered the back of this base part in masking tape, so I'm not worried if the resin goes over the side, which I fully expect it to. I want to cover the front completely, not so I deliberately send it over the edge, but it just needs to be completely covered. Once I've cleaned up my gloves and sprayed it with isopropyl alcohol, then I can start putting my embellishments in. And as they are really quite tough little things, they're not too flimsy. They're not catching air underneath, which is amazing. So I'm pushing them right the way down to the mirrored part and to make sure there's no air stuck underneath. It doesn't matter if they overlap slightly, they're going to have a frame on top, so you're not going to see too much of them. I just wanted them to add interest. I was thinking of putting a coloured resin in this piece, but I figured that that would take away from the mirrored effect. You wouldn't see the mirrors so well. So I decided we'd clear all round. With the rest of the resin, I'm covering over the top to make sure it's all covered. And I've got a little silicone tool just to finish the job. It was a little messy this, but you know, craft is messy, isn't it? A spray with isopropyl alcohol, the rest of the resin, and then I'm ready to put the top part on, making sure I get it lined up as best as I can. I do change my gloves a few times doing this, and then I put a bit of basswood on top and a heavy bottle to hold it down. That should keep it in place, and then I leave it to cure. So the following day, it's all cured up and I can take off the masking tape from the back. It's always satisfying seeing how well this stuff does. It just pops off the little drips of resin that has gone underneath, and there's no harm done at all. So I'm happy so far. Now I wanted to add a little extra to this. So I took it to the garage and I drilled some holes in it. Now obviously not everybody's going to have one of these drills, but you can use any drill. You can use a hand drill if you've got one. You just need a little hole big enough to put something through it. I don't even know if you can see this hole, but I've put it quite close to the corner for a reason, and I'm going to drill 12 holes. So I'm going all out with this piece and I'm going to give it some lights. Now the lights I had came in a set of 15, which was no good. So I removed 3 and that left me 12 lights. That was a good number, and I figured it would be fine if I put them in symmetrical areas. So I pushed the LED lights through the hole. Once it was through the hole, I separated the wires and I made sure that the LED was facing out. So I twisted the wires around the LED so the LED was facing outwards through the hole and the wire was pulled back into the hole. So the LED was facing out and flat. That was what I was trying to do. And then you could twist the wire at the back to hold it tighter. I tried the light and the light worked perfectly. So I went round and put an LED light in each of the 12 holes. I would have liked more, but I didn't want 2 sets of lights. That would just complicate it completely. And then I had to fill up the holes where the lights were, because this is going to be filled up with resin and we do not want resin pouring out of the base. So with hot glue I went round and I've plugged every hole, trying to keep the hot glue as flat to the base as possible. As this piece is not going in the pressure pot, I used the airless to get rid of a lot of the bubbles, but this is fast cure resin, and fast cure resin is notorious for holding in bubbles. I can't use isopropyl alcohol with this either, because it will ruin the black spray paint. It will kind of melt. So the only way I can get rid of surface bubbles with this is with heat. So I didn't make the whole amount, I made about enough for half of it at once, and I used the heat gun to get rid of the surface bubbles. I also went round with a micro brush into all the little corners, and this half went swimmingly well. I did exactly the same for the second half, but for some reason I got more bubbles, and that was air coming out from between the mirror and the frame. Must have had quite a lot in there for some reason. I did struggle with the second half. I eliminated some bubbles, but not all of them. While that was curing, I decided to make myself a back casing. I really wanted to finish this piece off, so I built a back box on the xTool M1. I cut the plate the same size as the original plate. I then cut 4 sides, one with a smaller entrance so I could put the battery compartment and the lights switch on the outside. I then thought, well, it's going to fall in, so I then built a little compartment. I did some little corner bits, And to be honest with you, even though I'm no carpenter, I did it and I was so chuffed. It took a few tries, it took a few errors that were needed correcting. It had about 4 times I needed to remove bits and put them back on a different size. But I got there. This little xTool M1 had made a carpenter out of me. Amazing. Right, taking a bit off there, a bit off there, and we'll see if it fits this time. So it needs to go that way in. That fits. So that needs to stay in there. And that now fit on there. And this can be taken out to change the battery and put back in again. We need a little clip. Right, but it's in there. So then it was time to sand. Now this is just 400 grits wet dry sanding paper, and I just went around all the edges to make them rounded and to give it a really nice end feel. It was all stuck together with super glue. It wasn't nailed, it was just stuck together with super glue, but it was sturdy. It was really sturdy. I dropped it once, believe me, it didn't fall apart. Once I'd given it a good sand, I was really happy with the way it looked, but it needed to be black to match the front. So instead of taking it to the garage and spray painting it, I just got the acrylic paint out and I painted it with black acrylic paint. Once that was all done, it was then time to put it together, and I was so looking forward to this part. Just putting together the back box in itself was just, I was just so amazed that I'd done this. I really am. Like I said, I'm no carpenter. I don't know how I did it, really. I was so chuffed that I had. But yeah, it's going to have a nice back box with a proper light switch. One that you can actually change the battery of. I have painted a little bit of black around the outside edge of the base as well. And there, I stuck it together with super glue. So Baz, challenge accepted and challenge completed. I really enjoyed this. I know it's taken me a long time to do it, but I really love the outcome. I love the lights. It's a shame about some of the bubbles that are on the second section, but it is what it is, and the outside is completely, I domed it so it looks absolutely gorgeous. Those holographic pieces set it off beautifully. It kind of reminds me of one of those floodlights actually, but I love it. I absolutely love it. So thanks so much, Baz, for giving me this challenge. I hope you've enjoyed watching it as well. It's been a lot of fun. I could have put colour in it, but I didn't want to detract from the mirror effect. How would you have done this differently? Let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Come back and see me next week, because you never know what I'm going to be up to. I never know what I'm going to be up to. Have a great week. Happy crafting, and bye for now.